Angry crowds battle tear gas and water cannons. Classic scenes of revolution. But the recent uprisings in the Arab world have been played out not just on the streets, but also through the cell phone and the computer screen. There's a new generation of cyber revolutionaries, skilled in how to tweet, blog and upload.
I can do everything through my cell phone. Text, pictures, videos, information, whatever I want to do.
They've defeated decades of state control over television, newspapers and free speech. But regimes are fighting back. They're shutting down the internet, blocking sites and cutting mobile networks. The battle lines have been redrawn. Information uploaded onto the internet is the new weapon of the 21st century. With Libya, refugees flee the intense fighting. More than 500,000 have crossed into Tunisia since the conflict began. But human cargo is not the only thing coming across the border. At a secret location, Libyan rebel fighters have highly sensitive contraband to hand over to the Tunisians.
بإمكانك مشاهدة الصورة في الكمبيوتر كلها شعارات تدعو إلى الحرية للشعب الليبي. وهذا المقطع كان أهالي نالوت يقومون بإسقاط ما يسمى بالكتاب الأخضر في مدينة نالوت، وهو رمز من رموز القذافي. طبعا حتى الشق الإعلامي يعتبر ما يقلش أهمية عن الشق العسكري وأقوى يعتبر.
Under Gaddafi's regime, internet access has been cut and smuggling videos and photos on SIM cards, USBs and mobile phones is the only way to show the outside world the extent of the uprising in Libya. But the initial spark that ignited this revolution happened only 100 miles away. It all started here on this street, on the morning of the 17th of December 2010. When 26-year-old street seller Mohamed Bouzizi had a humiliating run-in with the authorities. He set himself alight in protest. There were no videos and no photos, nothing to record the moment that kick-started revolution across the Arab world. But hours later, all this would change when his family took to the streets.
قمنا بالتصوير عن طريق الفيديو. كنت أنا شخصيا أقوم بالتصوير. كنا حاضرين يومها، حاولنا دائما ان نكسروا حاجز الخوف لدى الاهالي بوجودنا، ونكسروا كذلك الحاجز الاسلامي، الحاجز الاعلامي اللي كان يفرض نظام بن علي، وكانت انطلاقا من هذه النقطه.
In a desperate effort to get his family's message heard, Ali uploaded his footage onto the internet.
الفيسبوك هو كانت الطريقه تقريبا الوحيده اللي يمكن استعمالها باش نصدروا المعلومه، لانه بالفعل ما كانش عندنا حتى طريقه اخرى نجموا نتواصلوا بها.
His videos got an amazing response. This lone protest in a little-known town went viral, spreading to hundreds of thousands of TV sets, computers and mobile phones in Tunisia.
كرام تاع البوليسية.
Ali Saidan and his daughter Maisa were among the thousands who watched the videos from Sidi Bouzid and were persuaded to join the protests.
قام بمحاولة ضرب الفيديوهات، ولكن فهي عندما تحمل تصل حلقات متقاطعة من الأصدقاء في أقل من 3 دقائق تكون هذه الفيديوهات قد وصلت الملايين. صفحتي على الفيسبوك هي حديقة أهتم بها كثيرا.
Through Facebook, Ali and Maisa have been able to connect with people all over the world, sowing the seeds of revolution across international borders.
اكتشفت عبر صداقات مشتركة بعض المدونين المصريين، وكان يهمني أن أعرف كيف يتعامل الشباب المصري مع فيسبوك.
By the height of the Tunisian revolution, Ali had a number of Egyptian Facebook friends.
الناس فضلت ملهمة بأحداث الثورة التونسية 4 أسابيع. الشعار الأهم هو الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام. هو ما كانش موجود في التاريخ المصري قبل كده نهائيا. الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام تونسي باقتدار، يعني تونسي بنسبة 100%.
Through the internet, Bisan could share her political ideas with a far larger circle of people than she could ever reach with traditional methods.
ما كانش فيسبوك لو وجد اختراعه، يعني لانه باختصار ده الاريا الوحيد المفتوح.
A groundswell of protest began to form as people found a way to voice their opinions.
أنا بس بصور لكم فيديو عشان أقول لكم رسالة واحدة. عايزين ننزل يوم 25، هننزل نطالب بحقنا كبني آدمين. أنا نازلة يوم 25 وهقول للفساد لأ والنظام لأ.
By January the 25th, 90,000 protesters had signed up on Facebook to a day of rage.
25 يناير انا ما نزلتش الشارع، كان شغلي مكتبي اكتر منه في الشارع.
As protesters waged revolution on the streets, they needed a way to get their message out to a wider public.
في زمايلنا افكار نفسهم مهمه ان هم يجمعوا من الناس في الشارع كونتنت مالتي ميديا، فيديوهات على صور ووثائق ويوصلوها لنا واحد ينشرها على الانترنت. قعدنا نلعب اللعبه ديت لغايه ما اخر سيرفر كان متاح في مصر كمان اتقفل.
On the 27th of January, the government started shutting down lines of communication. But the protesters found a way to be heard from an unlikely source 5,000 miles away.
So this is an example of one of many phone calls that I did with Remy.
From his small office in the University of California, John Scott Railton found a way to reconnect Egyptians with the internet. He created a service called Jan 25 Voices. With all signals out of Egypt cut, he went back to relying on the old-fashioned telephone.
This was all about calling old fixed post numbers and reaching people's grandmothers, reaching their aunts, and getting those people to relay information from the youth who were out on the streets.
John created a network of Egyptians he could call to get information. He typed out their comments and posted them on Twitter, allowing the world to get minute-by-minute updates to the Egyptian revolution.
Cairo right now, people are in prayer, things quiet for now, and then the protest explodes. A wall of chanting from the street. The street is filled, we cannot see the pavement, chanting Mubarak has to leave. Tear gas is arcing across the crowd. I get a chill just reading this again. And then police have blocked Gala Bridge. Uncountable mass forming at Gala Square. They are trying to run the barricade. And you remember that footage of the tear gas. I was talking to someone watching that.
2 days later, John started putting the audio online for people to hear. At this point, his small operation was overwhelmed with listeners.
The audio has 4,077,000 plays from Gen 25 Voices. And I actually got a very nice little note from the CEO of this company saying, oh, by the way, you crashed our site. I'm going to have to take this.
With revolution now raging in neighbouring Libya, John has created a second service called Feb 17 Voices.
John, how are you?
Can we talk about where the shelling is coming from? For example, I know before it was coming from the medical technology clinic, is that right?
The shelling is hitting neighborhoods all over the city. Tanks, snipers, shootings, 20 people were killed yesterday, 9 so far today.
As the violence has escalated, the service has been inundated.
We call upon the international community to take the next step to really save the lives of the people of Misrata. This mad dictator
this criminal will massacre the people of Misrata. The humanitarian situation we have now more than 8,000.
Are you still there? Can you hear me? It's really very hard. It's extremely hard. Two of the people who I've worked with have already been killed. The best friend of one of my other sources was killed yesterday. So it's difficult. It's really difficult.
In Tunisia and Egypt, the struggle has paid off. In both countries, non-violent protest, organised through the internet, has succeeded in unseating decades of authoritarian rule. At present, an interim military council leads Egypt. Although the army was neutral during the revolution, since it has ended, the crackdowns have continued. On the 9th of March, a crackdown in Tahrir Square resulted in more than 100 arrests. The uprising has given birth to a new army of citizen journalists with the internet at their fingertips.
So this is someone calling me to check on 4 names that have been missing since the 9th of March.
Three days after the crackdown, Mona is on her way to the military courts to gather information.
What we know so far is that a group of them has been tried before a military court, and maybe today would be the sentence. Social media has been a very powerful tool in our search for any missing people or detainees. I already am getting messages from people I don't know at all with names added.
A list of possible detainees has been compiled by activists over the internet. In this new post-revolution era, information is still proving hard to get hold of.
The lawyer came back and he said that most of them got sentenced from 1 to 3 years, which is basically what we were fearing.
After a 12-hour day outside the military court, there's still important work for Mona to do on her computer back home.
I'm just waiting for tomorrow to start and work on a practical plan and then engage people in it through Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, bye-bye. First of all, I inform people because I sort of built a personal connection with all the followers, and they wait for me to tell them the latest news. How did I get into this? How did I become a source of information? I don't know when did this really happen, but suddenly people who I don't know completely are depending on me as a credible source. And I found people I don't know saying, we won't believe it till Mona Soch says it.
With the help of social media, revolution has spread across the Arab world. But more than that, it's created a new generation of citizens, learning how to enforce democracy from their computers.
Okay. طيب all right okay. In Homs, I think, or Hama, there is a massacre basically right now. Yesterday, Homs was really very violent. I'm just getting the message ready. I'm hoping that we can send some summary to various media outlets.
In Syria, the revolution is turning bloody. Hundreds of people have been killed since protests started. From his situation room near Washington, D.C., Ammar makes sure the internet is constantly updated with news from the front line.
Freedom, freedom. This is in Duma yesterday.
The internet has not been shut down, but protesters fear this is because the government wants to use it for its own advantage.
So this is part of the battle. It's cyber warfare. It's part of the actual battle going on right now. Perseverance is key, and eventually I think the Syrian regime will end up realizing that the real lesson is that you cannot oppress your people forever. And this is a lesson that they don't want to learn, but you will teach them that lesson.
Can I suggest, before we start the discussion, can we ask our guests to introduce themselves so we know who we are talking to start with, and then we can carry on the discussion. So we start with Noha, please.
I'm Noha Atif. I'm from Cairo. Now based in Birmingham for study. I'm doing a master's in social media. In Cairo, I've been working as a journalist. I'm also founder and editor of a weblog called tortureInEgypt.net.
Okay, Mohammed.
Yeah, I'm Mohammed Hani. I'm a journalist at Al Hayat. It's an Arab newspaper based in London here, and I'm originally from Cairo, and I'm the co-founder of Ishrah.com. It's a political awareness blog that was founded after the Jan 25 revolution.
Which is Ishrah means explain.
Explain.com, yeah, to explain basic things.
And if you see your contribution to the, if you describe your contribution to the revolution, how can you describe it?
I didn't contribute. I was just like everybody else, just retweeting and tweeting about the revolution. And
how many followers
the
you
people
have?
in Tahrir were the makers of this revolution and the true heroes behind it.
Okay.
Probably if we can know Noha followers.
How many followers, Noha?
Well, I'll tell you, but then I will have to have something. I have to add a comment, if you please. So I have 8,500 followers, but I don't think that this was my contribution to the revolution.
No. This is not the question. We just want to know you and your followers on Twitter. I have 4 tweets and 28 followers on Twitter.
You have a good one.
How many followers?
Just about 300 or something like this. Not that big. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm Zain Tawfiq. I covered the revolutions in Cairo, in Tunisia, and in Egypt. And I was in Iran during the protests that followed Ahmadinejad's elections in 2009. And I work as a presenter for BBC Arabic. I present a question time, Arabic version of the question time, which is Sa'at Hisab, question time, but in Arabic. Ahmed?
Yeah, well, I work as a producer and a journalist in BBC for the last 6 years. I was the producer and reporter of this documentary. I don't know, probably you like it or not. Anyway, so yes, and I have 253 followers only, but I'm proud of them. I'm really proud of them.
Okay, and finally Nasreen, please.
I'm Nasreen Salem. I'm English Egyptian. I'm Egyptian English, doesn't matter which order. I used to be an English teacher and I quit last September, which was perfect timing for the revolution to start. I quit to be a writer, and I'm doing an MA in creative writing at the University of Essex. I've been on Twitter for over a year, but I only started tweeting after the revolution started, literally the next day. And I started off with 12 followers. I've only just got 1,500 now, but still.
Okay, and I think I have a question for the panel, if you allow me. Does anyone of you think that the new media, the Twitter and the Facebook, caused the revolution?
Well,
Noah.
Well, I have an opinion, of course, on this. Since I was one of the first new media users in Egypt, I started my blog 2006, before even the revolution, before Facebook was known in Egypt, before Twitter was established, Twitter company. So I don't think at all that new media caused revolution. And even in that documentary, everyone talked about social media or new media, mentioned that in the context of media work. So it's a media tool. Some of them even said it's a media tool. It's a very powerful tool. So it doesn't drive a revolution. Twitter and Facebook and new media platforms are available everywhere in the world, but revolutions only happen in some places. And guess what? These places are known as oppressors. I mean, Egypt and Tunisia have been in the list of internet enemies for over 3 years. And Egypt,
but Syria as well, and Saudi Arabia.
And then you have revolution in these places also. Yeah. So it's not a matter that who have the new media, then he will have a revolution. The point is, who knows how to use social media? Who has the boldness to use social media, to use new media, to mobilize people and know how to use it?
Okay. I think we all agree on that. You want to comment?
Yeah, but I couldn't agree more with Noah on this. But the thing is, a lot has been said about the role of social media in this revolution and how it sparked the revolution and how it was behind it. But I don't see this. I think the grievances were there, the anger was there, everything was ready. The situation was ready and waiting for a revolution, and it just facilitated the thing, nothing more than this.
I'll probably say what Rami Raouf told me when I asked him the same question. Do you think the social media was behind all this? And he said, well, actually no. And the evidence was when we had a blackout of internet and communication in Egypt, the revolution had to stop, but it didn't. So actually the revolution, social media was a tool in communication to gather people, to probably tell people what kind of chants, or probably to direct some people to the direction of the revolution. But actually this revolution was a people's revolution coming from the people, and it reflected their suffering for a huge amount of time.
Okay, Street, finally.
I totally agree with everything said so far, and I think it was definitely used as a tool, and it was a tool for moral support as well. And people outside of Egypt were morally supporting people in Egypt through retweeting what they were saying, through spreading the word. So it was basically a tool to keep the fire going worldwide.
Make it known. We welcome questions or comments from the audience, please.
I just wanted to ask you if you think the activists in Tunis and Egypt created any particular model or had a template for a communication strategy, or did they just come up with this in an organic way? How did they go about communicating so effectively?
Do you mean how Egyptians and Tunisians?
You talked about the efficiency of social media is in how to use it. So you're saying that some people there knew how to use it. My question is, how did they use it? Did they come up with a model, or did they learn from someone else?
Yeah, I think it's like everything. If you are spoiled with something, then you just use it. But if you are kind of oppressed or something is prohibited, then you go more creative and find way to circumvent for this. For it. So, for example, when during the blackout in Egypt, when the internet was shut off, people went on documenting the protests, documenting the crimes, even if they know that they got no access to the internet. And even before this, before the protests in Egypt or Tunisia, everywhere, people who are not able to use the internet. For example, in Egypt, we have 17 million people who cannot read or write. We have really a high percentage of illiteracy. So those people are not supposed to go online.
But they were using their mobile phones to document everything, and then they look for someone, the one who we tend to call an activist, and then they give him through Bluetooth maybe they give him the files and he uploads it. What I'm trying to say, it's not an elite. Usually people think that the activists, there are some people called activists, and there are the people standing behind all these protests, all these revolutions. So these protesters are like middle class, and they are young and they are educated and they have their own laptops. But the truth is that everyone, and at least in Egypt, everyone gradually became an activist. If you find a video on YouTube uploaded by an activist, it's not the activist who made it. There are some people who allowed him to do this. There are some people who facilitated it. So you can say that the society became more active. You were asking if they got more creative. I would mention there are many examples, but for example, Tunisian case. Before the revolution, if you Google Tunisia in Google Earth, then you go to Tunisia and then you find they pop up some information, like here is a shop where Ben Ali's wife is doing her shopping. Here is where Ben Ali is living, and here is when his properties. So it's kind of scandalizing him by using this platform, the Google Maps, the Google Earth. I wish my answer is it satisfying.
I think you might be asking about John Scott from Washington, maybe, because he was he presented the revolutionists in Egypt, in particular, with a tool to be heard.
It's more organized than it was organic. So how did they suddenly link up with this network? Very efficiently.
I think Ahmed might have an answer.
Well, actually, it's very, very organic. But because of the nature of technology, because of the nature of the tool, it seemed organized, but it's not organized. It's really organic. And what you find, well, let me tell you that I had researched this. I was living the revolution day by day from London by tweeting about it, by writing Facebook, and I was communicating with my friends, with my family in Cairo during the revolution, because I was living here in London. And when we had the blackout, I was really scared about my family because I couldn't reach them by Twitter, Facebook, even mobile phones. Everything was cut. And then after that, when I had the idea of doing the documentary and I was researching about it, and I thought, yeah, I have a clear idea. When I went to Egypt and then went to Tunisia, I found that everything was really, really different than what I read about. So basically what Noha said is the truth, is what is in reality. You will find someone like this old man in Tunisia, and then you will speak to him and you will find him very sympathizing with the Egyptian revolution, though he is living in Tunisia, and he knows an Egyptian girl, her name is Bisan Kassab, and you will go to Bisan Kassab, and then after probably a couple of hours interviewing her, you will find that she knows people who will lead you to people, to other people, and then you will find you are in the middle of this amazing web of activists everywhere in the world, every corner in Egypt, every corner in Tunisia. Some of them are probably they are not educated in universities, but they have a mobile phone with a camera, and they will shoot, they will give their material to someone who have an internet, and he will upload it. And at the end, because you are sitting in London or in any city on your computer or your laptop, you will find everything organized, because you will find videos in YouTube, you will find tweets in Twitter, you will find hashtags, but actually it's very organic. We have met a very nice young lady, her name is Ali Al-Husseini, and it was amazing that she was inventor of the hashtag Jan25. And if anyone came to me and told me, you know what, hashtag 25, I'll never understand what's hashtag Jan25. And then I realized that there is a huge world called Twitter, where people will regard hashtags, this certain this combining of letters and numbers, because through hashtags you can reach the threat of Twitter, of feeds, tweeting about a certain subject. And the hashtag of Jan25 is regarded as, you know, a very, very, very important thing. And this hashtag is now probably related to millions and millions of tweets about the revolution in Egypt, because everyone at the end of his tweet will put hashtag Jan25, so everyone can know he is tweeting about the revolution. And then we found this young lady, her name is Ali Al-Husseini, and we interviewed her. Unfortunately, we couldn't put her in the 22-minute cut. But anyway, and then Ali Al-Husseini will lead us to Ali Atif, who, after speaking to him, will lead us to John Scott Railton in Los Angeles. After speaking to him, we will discover that John Scott Railton knows Rami Raouf. And then you will find this amazing web. So it's organized on your laptop, but it's really organic in reality.
What was the beginning of having a cause in Twitter, Facebook, YouTube? Because we used Facebook and Twitter and YouTube well before the revolutions, and it was about watching films, you know, socializing, chatting. When was the moment when it has concentrated on a cause, which is the revolution?
Probably Muhammad and Nasreen.
I guess it was happening all the time before Jan 25 revolution. People were documenting since the general strike in Egypt in April 2008. People were documenting the
so that was
labor strikes. And
this was
maybe
that was the
before this, the videos about the torture in Egypt that Noah was reporting, well, Abbas and other people was reporting about. So we had the blogosphere full with this organic thing about. There's no such model. It was all organic because people were used to do it since let's say the parliamentary election in 2005.
2005.
Let me add that the general strike in 2008 was the first event, the first big event, mass event, to have this kind of propaganda on Facebook. So this was probably but before that we had a lot of videos about torture in police stations, and for years and years and years we knew that there's torture in police stations, but we didn't I don't know, we didn't care less because probably you are coming from the middle class or high class where people are not treated badly in police stations in Egypt. But when we saw the videos, something happened, and then when we had Khalid Saeed getting killed, this was big because he comes from a middle class where we thought that any one of us could be Khalid Saeed, and from there, this amazing idea of having a Facebook group called We Are All Khalid Saeed.
I think we have a question from the audience here. Yeah.
Phil Reese here. I mean, I just wonder, obviously, you know, it's very tangible, the success of social media in the events of last year, but do you think it can be equally successful in forming a kind of ideology for a post-revolutionary society? And I just ask, bearing in mind a couple of things here, that first of all, obviously both revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt occurred with the consent of the military, and where that consent has not been provided elsewhere, events have been largely stymied. But moreover, social media tends to offer opinions very strongly, and you know, in the West you get a wide range of opinions, often extreme opinions, but it tends not to coalesce necessarily to provide an ideology that would serve the future of the nation. And obviously, if you look at both Egypt, Tunisia, there's a large divide between Islamists and non-Islamists. So, you know, to what extent do you feel its role will play in an electoral process and in that kind of form of civic society?
Mm-hmm. Okay, question to whom?
The question to everybody or to?
Well, whoever wants.
Well, I can say something myself. I think it's going to be dividing.
And congratulations on the film, by the way.
No, thank you very much. I'm really pleased. I'm really scared, and let me tell you that I don't know. I have love-hate relationship with this film, so I can't.
I think from my point of view, I'll go back to the guests. From my point of view, it's dividing because every ideology has access to the internet and to the blogosphere and to all the facilities available there, and it's now being used by each side to their you know, their purposes and their ideology. And so in the next elections in Egypt and in Tunisia, it's going to be dividing, and there will be a unifying factor as it was before the revolutions. The unifying factor in Egypt and Tunisia, where the revolution succeeded, was to get rid of oppressive regimes that, you know, took all the air from the sphere in every single aspect of life, socially, culturally, and as well as politically. But that unifying factor is now gone, and every side now is trying to achieve their goals. Those who think that Egypt and Tunisia should be an Islamic state will of course do a propaganda to that purpose, and the liberals and the leftists and other groups will do the same as well. So in my point of view, it's going to be dividing, and there is no unifying factor, but we can hear from the stream, for example.
I think the best example to set is the referendum that happened in last March. We had a very simple but the most, how can I put it, the most amazing democratic experience that Egypt had experienced in the last 30 years, where there was a simple vote, yes or no. Are you with the changes in the constitution, or you're against it? And on Twitter alone and Facebook, it was an amazing debate that was going on. Everyone had either a big red no or a big green yes to voice out their opinions. And on Twitter, if you were a yes, you were a minority, and on Facebook, if you were a no, you were a minority. So even though they're both tools of media, both social media platforms, they were very different. The audiences were very different, held different opinions. However, when the results came out, the no team, as I like to call them, were shocked because they only came out with 22%, and the rest voted yes. I think the biggest shock for me was the fact that only 14 million people voted out of 85 million Egyptians or whatever.
Out of 40 million eligible for voting.
Oh, sorry, yeah. And I think that will show you that actually the effect of social media is definitely not widespread, and the only people who have access to it are actually a minority, let's say 22% or whatever, and the rest, the street, are actually who have the valid voice and who actually have the voice that counts, that can actually make a change in Egyptian society.
Yeah.
Nice comment.
Yeah, I have comments here.
Thank God.
2 points. I have a comment for everything. I'm Egyptian, so I'm talking about it. Yeah, 2 points. First, I expect that social media will lead to more exposure to the ideologies. If before you can just talk to someone and tell them if why you want Egypt to be an Islamic state or why you want it to be a liberal state. Today you can talk to thousands of people by just making a video blog and upload it to YouTube. The second point is that I put that it's not only social media users who get access to the files we upload to the social networks. I mean, if I uploaded something to YouTube or to Facebook or to Twitter, it's not me, or it's not only the Twitter community or Facebook community, the internet community who are going to access it. It happens a lot that you find you watch something. My sister would watch something online, and then she brought her laptop to my mother and showed her what she watches. This is from the other way. The other mean that these files reach out those people who are not online is that the traditional media is picking on social media. So if there's a trending, if there's a file that video that which is going viral, it will appear on TV. Even the tweets over the protests were shown in BBC, in Al Jazeera, and other traditional media outlets.
Okay, Mohammed.
Yeah, actually, the mainstream media relied on the social media heavily during the revolution because we had absolutely nothing. The total blackout of and the harassing the journalists, the international and foreign journalists over there. So the main source during the revolution was the social media. You had a list of activists you are following, and you know they are there, and you know you can rely on them, and they have certain credibility, and you just follow them during the days that you have no other source to follow. And this happened in mainstream media, Al Jazeera, BBC Arabic, and television and newspapers and all the mainstream media. So not only that the social media helped spread the cause or spread the word to the online users or the online community, it also did this through the mainstream media, and they were complementing each other in fact.
Yeah. Well, I have probably going back to the ideology. After going to Egypt and Tunisia and meeting this group of brave, inspiring young people, I came to this idea that this group of young people in Egypt, this core, revolutionary core in Egypt or Tunisia, if you had them travel to the US, they can have the regime of Obama fall. They are very powerful. They can go to any country and demolish any regime. They are really, really powerful.
But they couldn't win the referendum.
Yeah, that's right. But after
they couldn't convince people in Bahira and countryside in Egypt to go and vote no.
Absolutely, because after they will demolish the regime, they don't have any ideology how they will build the future. And you know what? This is not their job. Their job is to go there, and if they go to North Korea, they will be able, because they have an oppressive regime, they will be able to communicate, they will be able to use the social media as a tool to gather, to have ideas, to make people go and have the regime fall. But after that, the real forces of the society will participate in shaping the future of the country. So it's not the social media people, they will be part of a huge society trying to decide what kind of future they want.
Yeah. Oh, we have a question. Sorry, we have a question down. Yeah, please.
I just want to start by saying congratulations on the piece. It's really
Thank
nice.
you very much.
I'm a BBC journalist too, and we obviously taught that we use trusted sources. I wondered in your research whether you came across any
shady Twitter accounts or any accounts that were propagating
yes.
material, and
this was horrible. Let me tell you that I will contact someone and he will tell me a lot of things, and then I will go and dig on internet and try to call my resource, and I will find he is inventing a lot of things. Like one of the misconceptions or the false statements and it's everywhere on Twitter and social media, that Mohammed Bouazizi, before torching himself down, before burning himself, he wrote a status on Facebook. And then I went to Sidi Bouzid, I met his family, I met everyone, I met his school friends, and you know what they said? It's a false. It didn't happen. And the actual story, he had a row with one of the
policewoman.
Policewoman, and then he went to Al-Wali, to the governor, to have to say it's outrageous for her to slap me, but they didn't care to beat him. So he went to a gas station, and I went to the same gas station, because Sidi Bouzid, by the way, is one street, and that's it. It's really small, but it's huge in the impact of this city, this village. So he went to the gas station, he bought gasoline, and he torched himself, and that's it. He didn't go back to home. He didn't try Facebook. All was invented. So this was a small example, but a lot of examples of I was trying to verify every piece of information 3 times, 4 times, and you know what? At the end, probably 80% of what I said was, and 20% only that made it.
Which 20 minutes? Okay.
22.
My question is, I'm really proud of our young
Do we have a mic?
Arab students and so on. I'm regular visitor to Egypt myself, and I have a family living there for 20 years, so I quite know bit about Egypt. But what I understand is the people who are able to access to internet, they were students, mainly 80%, and the population is 82. And if you overall add it up, the people who are demonstrating are mainly students and workers who are access to internet and mobile phones and things like that. They quite achieve their goal, but what I always worried is, okay, yes, it worked for Tunisia and Egypt, and it's a wonderful thing happened to them. But if you look now in Libya, and if you look to Yemen, it's a different picture. I myself came from a country completely destroyed because of a civil war and result of a dictator who was there for 25 years, Somalia. But if you look at the Yemen, how will that work? The people are not educated like Egypt or Tunisia. They have access to the resources you have there. There are tri-pays. How will that work? They're not even, yes, social networks are powerful too. But if they have a power, if the government is offering the chance to talk and make a dialogue, why they don't, the media and the internet and Facebook, they don't play a role to give a chance to people to sit down and instead of forming a flame and more fighting, and I'm a bit worried about that, what it will lead in the future.
Okay.
Can I just say something about it?
You can, yes.
Because you said that middle-class people and people who had access to mobiles and internet and educated people were in Tahrir, and this is a complete and total myth. The people that were there were the labor activists there, and the workers were there. You had village people coming from all across the way, from the south of the country and from the north to participate. You had people who came from the slums there, from slums of Cairo and Egypt, and they were there. And when the thugs of the regime attacked Tahrir in the famous battle of the Camel on the 2nd of February. The people who stood against those people were not the middle class educated people who had access to mobiles and internet. It was the
thugs from the suburbia.
Yeah, no, the thugs. The people coming from this. The people. Yeah, the Egyptian, the true Egyptian people coming from there.
Money from other villages because they can afford to travel and come there, but there is a.
Can I say something?
I would just to remind you of something that when the protests started, Tahrir was blocked. Like you cannot use trains to get to Cairo. You cannot use buses to get to Cairo. Everything was blocked. And people were some people were trying to get to Tahrir Square from other provinces in the country through the Nile. So they took a boat. It's not, if you want to do something, you would do it. But then again, when you said that students are you just say the vast majority of internet users, social media users in Egypt, that's untrue. If you had been, maybe you were visiting and you were living in Egypt some years ago, but today, if you go to Egypt, you will find everywhere an internet cafe. Even in the very poor small villages, you might not find a hospital, but you will definitely find an internet cafe.
Yep.
And even the skilled workers are going to the internet cafe. No, let me tell you the price. The skilled workers are going to internet cafes, and at the end of the day, maybe to enjoy or even to do the chat, but they know what internet is.
Yep.
An hour in an internet cafe in Egypt, an hour online costs you £1 Egyptian, which equals 20 pence USD dollars, which is nothing.
The internet is everywhere now in Egypt, even in my small village that hasn't got a hospital or a school.
Arab countries, how will that? How? Because people, they don't have this facility of internet, Facebook, TSG, iPhone. So you're talking about massive country, for example, in Yemen, who are based in tribes, in cities, who are even disconnected.
Yeah.
So how will that social network, if they created this massive movement, how don't they ever have an idea A to B Like, I don't understand. Like,
I think we said in the beginning that the social media didn't cause the revolutions. It made it heard and known to the world, and once it started, it's gonna be completed by the people who started it, and that's the example in Egypt, in Tunisia, and what's happening in Yemen, in Syria, and in Libya. So because as all my guests said, the connections were cut in the 28th of January, and then but the revolution continued. I think we have a question in the back, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. Although I felt, I don't know whether it's part of a longer project or whether you're thinking of extending it. I felt, as some of the questioners are beginning to hint at, that maybe there are some other issues that need to be brought into this. I'm just kind of wondering, can we talk about social media separate from politics, really? It seems to me, as somebody, an outsider of this, I'm an Irish artist living here in London, but I followed very closely on Twitter and so forth what was happening in Tunisia and in Egypt and elsewhere now. But it seems to me it's something that that social media operates, particularly in these contexts, in a very particular way in the heat of the moment. And I think in a situation like this, making a film, reflecting on it, we need a different kind of mentality. I think there's a danger of getting slightly rhetorical about what social media can achieve, because it seems to me that the perennial problems of the world, and not just of Arab countries, of poverty, of power, of politics, of who has power, who exercises it, what political ideology people believe in and what they want for their country. Those are the things that are going to determine the future, not social media. It's only a vehicle. And I think maybe, although I enjoyed the film, I felt maybe it could be extended to include a more contextual analysis of that, I think it needs that.
Yeah. Well,
maybe in the Arabic version?
Yeah, probably. Well, I totally agree with you. Social media will not change the world. It will be only a tool of communication. It will be a tool of inspiring people. Like a huge amount of people in Egypt were inspired by the story of Khalid Said. Khalid Said story. He is a young man in Alexandria, and he was beaten up and he was killed of torture in the public street, in his street. And then after that, police said, well, actually, he was a drug addict, and he died because of an overdose.
He suffocated on a bag.
Suffocated, So actually, we never knew the story of Khalid Said from the mainstream media. We only knew about his story from social media, and we were inspired by social media.
And some traditional media as well.
Well, probably opposition media, but the graphic pictures of Khalid Said after getting killed were on social media, were on Facebook, everywhere. And I was trying to use this picture in the documentary, but actually, it was impossible because it was it was really graphic. It was really graphic, and so I totally get your point. The ideologies changes the world. Oppression, probably, the huge amount of oppression will change the course of history and society. But social media is a medium. It's not a tool of change, it's a tool to communicate. And also, I get your point, by the way, my friend, and I have the same question, and probably I don't have answer. But let me tell you that every country has its own case. In Egypt, what made Mubarak regime fall in 18 days was not social media, it was a very simple thing. The man was 83 years old, and 70% of the people in Egypt were under 30. There was a huge mental gap between them. They couldn't communicate. He thought, who are these people? And they thought, who is this man? He was the only, his picture was at every city, at every street, and at every mile. And they get fed up.
It might work for Egypt and Tunisia. That's my answer.
That's right. The revolution will not be copied. It will not.
It's really sad what happened to other countries.
I totally agree with you.
My own country.
I totally agree with you.
When I look at it, it's very scary. It's completely different.
That's right. I totally agree. It will not be copied. Revolutions are not,
every country is different.
Yeah. Can I just add one point?
Yeah,
when I managed to go to Tahrir for one day on a Friday, and I was actually the first one there at dawn at 5 o'clock in the morning. But the people who were already there was about 100 people there, and and they were not the rich, they were not the educated, and they were not the people who had internet access. They were the simple coffee boys, they were the farmers, they were the hobos. They were sleeping in the roundabout, waiting for the first protesters to come in and to start building the crowd. So, and these people obviously weren't called in or summoned by Twitter or Facebook.
When was
it was
that?
the voice of, this was the Friday before Hosni Mubarak was put under arrest.
All right. So that is after
he stepped down, yeah.
After he stepped down.
And and basically what I'm trying to say is these people are the ones who suffered the most under the regime. They suffered from a lack of education, poverty. These are the people who abolishing the regime means more to them. They are the ones who need the change, who want the change. And actually the people who, the activists and the rich and the elites and so on, we really only did it for them. Our lives really aren't that affected. A lot of us have just, we live abroad or we have a good life in Egypt, whatever. Actually, some of us have actually suffered after this happened. But we did this for them.
Okay.
I just wanted to...
Yeah, please.
I wanted to see if there's any stories from tweets about intimidation that we don't see, or is it you're all the same, you're all talking to each other, like-minded people? Is there someone who doesn't like you or disagrees with you, sends you nasty things, and how do you deal with that?
Yes, yes, very nasty things.
Okay, I think we have a question at the back as well, and then we come back to the guest.
Yeah, I just wondered whether there's a danger that if those who lead the revolution don't take responsibility for building the next stage, that those with traditional power are just going to take over again. And so those who have the techniques for overthrowing and for disrupting the oppression will actually keep giving way to those who, the capitalists, the army, who have traditional power, and they're just going to keep coming back, maybe more subtly, maybe with more cleverness in the way that they do it, maybe sort of bringing a few more people on board, maybe even buying off the activists. It seems to me there's a real risk that without actually those who are responsible for the work in overthrowing the regime being part of the creation, which is a really difficult part, because to create a new government, a new system, a new ideology is really long-term tough work. So what do you think about the real risks at the moment that in fact in a few years' time that the traditional forms of power are going to be restored?
Okay.
Let's hear from Noam. How would you like to answer?
No, I don't.
Let's hear from you, and then we can move around.
Brilliant. Of course, there is the danger that the traditional powers may take over again, but the thing is, people have been politicized by this revolution. Many people have been politicized by this revolution. And you had, the day Mubarak stepped down, and we had 12 million people on the streets. And those people, I think, won't let anyone repeat the Mubarak experience again. They won't just accept it. And a lot has been said about the power of the Muslim Brotherhood as the most organized political group on the ground. But we recently had a second Friday of Rage where the Muslim Brotherhood not only boycotted the protests, it attacked the protesters and called them traitors and things like this. And we had basically like 2 million people on the streets, and this was a great thing to have. And so in a sense, yeah, there's a possibility, and they are trying now to regain their territory, whether it is the capitalist elite that was a beneficiary of Mubarak and his gang, or the Muslim Brotherhood or the traditional forces. But this won't go down easily, because even inside the groups like Muslim Brotherhood or even the Salafis, who are more extremist than the Muslim Brotherhood, things are changing. There are different voices now emerging from within. So it won't be that easy that someone might just take over. And I need to return to something that was said earlier about the consent of the army. The case in Egypt is very different from the case in Tunisia. In Tunisia, the army was a major player since day one in this revolution. But in Egypt, the army just tried to ride the wave in the last 3 or 4 days to protect its interests, not because it's revolutionary or it wants to topple Mubarak or something like this. It just tuned in to protect its interests. So even the army is the most powerful player in Egypt right now. It's too risky to try to hold things, to return the clock or try to get hold of power. They have a fear. They would like to, I guess, but they can't do it. They simply realize that they can't do it, and the people won't take it anymore.
I have a very small thing to add. Oh yeah, thank you very much. I went to Egypt in June 2010. It was a trip for 1 month, and I had this thought that Mubarak's regime will live for 1,000 years. It's very strong. It's you can't do anything with Mubarak regime. And you know for a fact that Mubarak will die, Gamal Mubarak will come as a president, Gamal Mubarak will die, and his daughter, Khadija, what's her name, I don't know, she will come as a president. So I know the presidents of Egypt for the next 100 years because of Mubarak regime. But then we had this amazing thing, which is people going into the streets in millions, and no one can stop this huge amount of people who are chanting at the same minute, and at the same they are chanting down with Mubarak, down with Mubarak. And for the first time I can hear the voice of the people in TV when I heard the millions in Tahrir saying the people demand the fall of the regime. You can hear the voice of a 24-year-old man, a very angry 24-year-old man. You can hear his voice, and this voice was coming from millions in Tahrir. So basically, I know what you are saying, and I know the danger of, probably because the traditional forces are are trying to shape the future of the country. But the people knew the way. The people knew that they can go to the streets and they can force anything on the regime. And now, if you go to Egypt, the president of the country is the people. And this is amazing, because I remember when Mubarak was a president, he was the only one who can appoint anyone from the prime minister to probably a small clerk in a government. He was, everything in Egypt will come from one man only. Only he will decide everything. Okay. But now it's impossible. The people.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Very quickly, since I'm hearing
very briefly, please.
Since I'm hearing a lot the word ideologies and politics, so I just want to hint that nowadays in Egypt, more people are engaged with politics. Over the protest over the protest, there were, police withdrew, so there were a need to security, some people to secure it. So we had something called neighborhood committees, which people just volunteer to guard their neighborhoods, and they organize themselves in shifts and everything. So currently these neighborhood committees are still in touch, and they're still meeting and discussing the political situation of the country. And there are also in Tahrir Square and in the protests all over the country. Today we have more than movement parties to be. They will become political parties. What I'm trying to say is that there are many people who are engaged with politics, and this maybe form a kind of security to what we tend to call activists again. like before the revolution, if you are standing out of the crowd and saying down with Mubarak, this would be dangerous for you, and you easily could be oppressed. But nowadays, it's not only you.
But is there a danger? I think the gentleman is asking about the dangers now. Is there a danger now, or the danger
always will remain a danger.
Okay.
But I think nowadays it's less than yesterday.
Yeah, we have a question here, please.
Good evening. First, congratulations on the movie. Amazing, and thanks very much for your hard work. My question is very similar as the gentleman in back. It's more expanded. Well, obviously, we know that the people of the Egypt, Syria, Iran, and most of the countries in the Middle East inspire and get emotional by the footage of their compatriot died or set himself on fire, and then they came to the street and overthrown the dictatorship regime. But then the real question is that I'm Iranian, and I know what's happened in the last 3 weeks after the election in Iran, that most of the opposition political group, behind the screen and behind the curtains make the agreement to come united to overthrow the government. Unfortunately, it didn't work that well because of the misunderstanding they had. So I believe that in 18 days in Egypt, we saw lots of political groups back in your country make this agreement to become united. Obviously, I know that's more organic, as one of your friends said. People join and came out to the street, but I can see the other side, that some of these political groups join each other to make a better future for the country. But my real question here is that back in my country 30 years ago, people got emotional, came out, they overthrown the regime, but because it wasn't clear option, and they gave them one option, yes to no, as the lady said, and the question was Islamic Republic of Iran, yes or no. So everybody say yes, because they didn't want to go back to wherever they were. So they choose the wrong option because there was any other option, and then one dictatorship gone and another one replace him, and it become more worse. So my question here is what you do as media and how you use this social networking to raise the awareness, to say, okay, political groups always going to be political groups. The people are the future of the country. People need to vote to the right things, and how you're going to make this option clear for the people, how to use these tools, as you said, to make it clear for this young generation, which have no idea about the politics, about these political agreement and things like this.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, we can hear from Nisreen.
I think the best thing that Twitter and Facebook offer, from my experience, is that people are talking to each other. People who come from all sorts of backgrounds, they have completely differing opinions from across the spectrum. You've got from Salafis to Muslim Brotherhoods to liberals and leftists and centrals and so on, and they're all communicating. They're not agreeing, and sometimes it's not very civil, but they are talking. And whether they want to admit it or not, they're actually listening to each other and they're learning from each other. Now, the example I gave earlier, the referendum of yes and no, I found it very tricky that these were the only options that were given. I mean, here the High Council was giving us an option. We've made some changes that we've dictated. You either agree to them and say yes, or you don't agree to them, say no, in which case we'll have to come up with a whole new constitution. Now, this split the Egyptian street significantly, especially on Twitter. But I was one of those who actually wanted to vote no vote. As in, we should neglect the voting. We should not be dictated anymore. What choices we have. We should be saying, right, we want this and this and this, rather than say, okay, so what are you going to throw at us? So I think what Twitter can offer, or social media can offer, is that people talk to each other. It doesn't matter what kind of ideology you come from or you believe in and so on. I think communication is key, and then maybe I'm an idealist, or in an ideal world, that's what should really happen.
Can I say something? When the Twitter and the Facebook activists called for a big demonstration with millions of people coming to put Mubarak to trial, everyone in the society took part. when we had another one for example, support Gaza and the Palestinians. Everyone took part, and there was no split in the society. But when we had calls to support one, one side of the debate in Egypt about one subject, which is the constitution, or be it refusing the constitution and come up with a new one and ignore the vote of the referendum of 19th of March, that split the society. And I think the social media will do favor to itself and to the people in Egypt and in Tunisia when they choose the big issues, the big landmarks to focus on in the future. And one of it, for example, and that is totally ignored by the social media, is the status of lawlessness in Egypt, which is a major danger for the revolution and for the state of Egypt. The central state of Egypt, which has existed hundreds of years, is in danger of dissolving because of the lack of security and the lack of the power of the center in Egypt, which was the case all over the long history of Egypt. That is now at stake and is totally ignored by the activists in the social media because they are very busy with an amendment here and an amendment there, and the stakes are much, much bigger than that. And I think the social media should focus on the big issues. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask about the role of women in all this. You probably saw a piece in The Independent today or yesterday about particularly terrible treatment of women in Bahrain, which hasn't been mentioned much tonight. Sort of instrument of war like we'd read about from the Congo. And I want to know, I'm sure you'll say women have been empowered, but in this case, I'm wondering.
Thank you for your question. Actually, if you look back to 2005, when the first when the first person said down with Mubarak for the first time in the history of the country, that was Kifaya movement, that was this movement, and one of its leaders is Dr. Karima Al-Hifnawi, who is a woman, who's a pharmacist. If you look back before January 2005, you found we are talking about thousands of protests, and always you find women not only participating in these protests but also leading these protests. The worker strike. If you look to the women rule there, how they started the strikes actually, like Mahalla in 2008. This mass strike happened in Egypt in 2008, April 6th. That was initiated from a textile mill in Mahalla, in this city in Nile Delta, and you know how the strike started. The workers were deciding we want to strike, and they were going back and forth. We want it. No, we will delay it. We want it. We will delay it. And then the female workers, they just said, okay, we are going and we are starting the strike. Doesn't matter. And they were chanting this slogan that here are the women, where are the men? And which actually agitated the men to say, yeah, if you started it, we join you. And then this biggest strike inspired the whole country to go on a mass strike. If you look, I would not say over and over that in Tahrir Square or any other square in Egypt there were always women mobilizing, organizing. I just would say it's not the revolution that empowered women, but it showed the role they, highlighted the role they are playing already.
But there are fears, I agree with you, there are fears from women activists in Egypt and Tunisia that the revolution will do to them that exactly the same as the revolution in Iran, when things didn't go well for ladies after the revolution, when they took part in the beginning of the revolution. But the fears are there, and I met many of the women activists in Egypt and Tunisia, and I get the same message. Yeah, we will have the last question from Shayma.
A question to you, Mohammed. I wanted to know what your views are on, we spoke about social media activists and people who have started it to continue. How worried are you or not worried about the national dialogue? Up until now there have been talks about people coming together and finding a way forward, and it hasn't happened, and the first actual big session didn't work at all. And also about the readiness of the country for the coming elections, because again there's a huge debate in the country about the parliamentary elections and how ready people are. You talked about the myth that the Muslim Brotherhood are the only ready party, whereas in reality they are the only ones that are physically and in reality are present in the street. There may be a lot of political parties that are forming, but how effective are they?
Yeah, okay. I don't agree with you on the Muslim Brotherhood bit. They are not the only. They're not the biggest power on the street in Egypt. And as for the elections, the next election, how ready are we? We are ready. We're very ready for the elections, the next elections. The Muslim Brotherhood knows very well that and they have repeated this, almost all the leaders except for one of them. And they said, we know we are about 30 to 50% of the society, and this is what we're going to get in parliament. And they said we're going to participate only on, we're going to only to compete on 50% of, hoping to get 50% of parliament seats, hoping to get 35% of this. And this is not because they are just giving way for to other political parties or political groups or other. This is their real size. This is their actual power on the streets. They have they exist in certain provinces, and
because they have freedom now, they can expand more.
They can do this, but they can't win the overall majority of people. And as for the political parties, we won't wait for the political parties for ages now to get ready. And the thought of waiting, postponing the elections to wait for political parties new political parties to get ready is really silly. And if you want to protect the revolution, have the elections now. Get rid of the SCF, the Supreme Council of Armed Forces, and have a civilian authorities there, and Scotland compete with it as you like. So I think you can rely on the individual candidates, not necessarily the party's candidates. There are many people who are popular in their counties and in the constituencies, and they are not necessarily affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. So I guess we're ready. About the national dialogue was basically a dialogue with the post-Mubarak, the Mubarak elite, and the faces we saw there. We even saw faces from the NDP, the National Democratic Party, that dissolved one. So.